Ronan Pierce had spent most of his 72 years alone, not lonely. There was a difference. Lonely people wanted company. Ronan preferred silence. Silence made sense. People rarely did. Every morning before dawn, the old man followed the same ritual he had followed for nearly 40 years. Coffee black as motor oil. Wool jacket regardless of weather. Tin tackle box dented from decades of use. Then down the narrow dirt path toward Blackwater Lake where his old rowboat waited tied beneath the fog-heavy pines. The lake was the only thing in town older and meaner than Ronan himself. The people of Ashbury Falls called him stubborn, bitter, difficult. Ronan considered those compliments. By 6:30 that morning, his rowboat drifted quietly over the dark water while mist rolled across the lake surface in pale ribbons. No wind, no birds, the kind of stillness that made the world feel paused. Ronan baited his hook carefully and cast his line toward deeper water. Then he waited. Fishing wasn't about catching anything anymore. It was about remembering how to be still. 20 minutes later, the line jerked violently. Ronan sat upright immediately. "Well now," he muttered. The pull was heavy, not the frantic thrashing of a bass, something larger, slow, dead weight. Ronan grunted as he reeled carefully. "Big bastard, ain't ya?" The line tightened harder, then suddenly moved upward, fast. Water broke the surface violently beside the boat, and Ronan saw a hand. Human. Gray-white fingers curled tightly around the fishing line itself. Ronan screamed. The body surged upward halfway from the lake. A young woman. Long, dark hair drifting beneath the water like weeds. Empty white eyes staring directly at him. Her mouth hung slightly open, skin swollen from decay, and wrapped tightly around her wrist. A silver bracelet. The corpse jerked once against the line, then sank again. Ronan recoiled backward so violently the fishing reel tore free from his hands and vanished into the black water. No, no, no. His heartbeat exploded. The lake surface returned instantly calm, as though nothing had happened. Ronan stared in horror for several seconds before grabbing the paddles frantically. He rowed harder than he had in 20 years. By the time he reached shore, his hands were bleeding. Sheriff Ellis Monroe listened patiently while Ronan explained what he saw. Twice, then a third time. The sheriff finally sighed. "So let me get this straight." Ronan slammed both palms onto the desk. "I hooked a damn body. You're sure it wasn't debris? I know what a body looks like." Ellis leaned back carefully. The sheriff was younger by nearly 20 years, but already carried the exhausted look of a man worn thin by small-town problems and too many secrets. "Ronan, I saw her." The sheriff exchanged a quick glance with Deputy Miller nearby. That glance irritated Ronan immediately. The poor old fool look. "I'll send divers out," Ellis said calmly. "Good. And if there's something down there, we'll find it." But they didn't. For 6 hours, the dive team searched Blackwater Lake. Nothing. No body, no clothing, no bracelet, no fishing reel. Nothing. By evening, word spread through Ashbury Falls exactly as Ronan feared. Old Ronan Pierce finally lost his mind. At Murphy's General Store the next morning, whispers followed him openly. "Probably hooked a catfish. Lake fog got him seeing ghosts. He's been alone too long." One teenager even laughed loudly. "Catch any zombies lately, Ronan?" The old man nearly broke the boy's jaw. Only the store owner, Martha Keene, dared speak kindly. "You okay?" Ronan grunted. "I know what I saw." Martha nodded slowly. "I believe you believe it." That answer angered him more than mockery, because Ronan didn't want sympathy. He wanted truth. And deep down, something about the dead girl's face bothered him terribly. Not familiarity, recognition. Like the lake itself had shown him something it meant to keep buried. 3 days later, Ronan sat alone inside Ashbury Falls Public Library studying old newspaper archives. The librarian watched him nervously from across the room. Nobody in town saw Ronan Pierce voluntarily researching anything, but the dead girl stayed inside his head every waking moment. Finally, buried in a yellowed article from October 1986, Ronan found it. 3 local teenagers vanished on Blackwater Lake during a late-night boating trip. Kelly Hart, Jonah Vance, Michael Turner, ages 18, 17, and 19. Their boat had been discovered drifting empty near the northern cove. No bodies recovered. Case unsolved. Ronan leaned closer. The article included photographs, and the moment he saw Kelly Hart's picture, ice flooded his veins. The bracelet. Same one. Silver with tiny crescent moons etched into the metal. Ronan sat frozen. No. 30 years. 30 damn years. Then he noticed something else. The article quoted several prominent townspeople heavily involved in the original search effort. Mayor Harold Bennett, Judge Samuel Reeves, and former Sheriff Walter Monroe, Ellis Monroe's father. Ronan's instincts immediately soured, because powerful men in small towns often protected one another. And Blackwater Lake had always been deeper than anyone admitted. That night, someone broke into Ronan's cabin, not to steal, to send a message. Every newspaper clipping Ronan collected lay spread across his kitchen table, and written across the wall in black paint, "Let the dead stay dead." Ronan stood silently in the doorway for a long time. Then he laughed once, a cold, dangerous sound. Wrong move. Because fear worked best on men who still had something left to lose. Ronan's wife had died 12 years earlier. His son barely spoke to him. His body ached every morning, and he'd already spent most of his life disappointing people. That made him dangerous. The next morning, Ronan marched directly into Sheriff Monroe's office carrying the photograph of Kelly Hart. Ellis looked visibly uncomfortable. "You should stop digging." That answer told Ronan everything. "You know something." "I know old tragedies ruin lives." "You sound just like your father." The sheriff's jaw tightened instantly. "Careful." "No, you be careful." Ronan stepped closer. "That girl's still in that lake." Ellis lowered his voice. "Some things are buried for a reason." Ronan stared hard at him. Then quietly, "That sounds exactly like something guilty people say." Ronan returned to the lake after midnight. Alone. Fog covered Blackwater Lake heavily again, swallowing moonlight and shoreline alike. His lantern swung gently inside the rowboat while he paddled toward the northern cove where the teenagers vanished decades earlier. The water felt different there. Still. Watching. Ronan lowered a grappling hook carefully into the depths. For nearly an hour, he found nothing. Then the hook caught. Hard. He pulled carefully. Something large shifted below. Mud bubbled upward. Then slowly. A submerged car emerged beneath the waterline. Ronan's blood turned cold. The vehicle sat upside down, buried in silt 30 feet below the surface. And inside, bones. 3 skeletons still trapped within the wreckage. Ronan stared in horror. Then headlights suddenly appeared on shore behind him. Someone else was there, watching. A gunshot exploded across the lake. Wood splintered beside Ronan's head. He dropped instantly flat into the boat. Another shot. The lantern shattered. Darkness swallowed the lake. Ronan paddled frantically while bullets struck water around him. Someone wanted those bodies to stay buried very badly. By dawn, Ronan finally understood the scope of what he uncovered. The teenagers hadn't drowned accidentally. They were murdered, and someone powerful covered it up. But why? The answer came unexpectedly from Martha Keene. The store owner arrived at Ronan's cabin, pale and terrified, carrying an old photograph. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. Ronan studied the image carefully. A party. Summer of 1986. Teenagers drinking beside Blackwater Lake. Then he noticed the adults in the background. Mayor Bennett, Judge Reeves, Sheriff Monroe's father, and another man. Young, terrified. Ronan recognized him instantly. Current Sheriff Ellis Monroe. Only 16 then. Martha's hands trembled. My brother was there that night. Ronan looked up sharply. What happened? Tears filled her eyes. They saw something. What? Martha whispered. The mayor's son killed Kelly Hart during an argument. Silence. The others threatened to go to police. Martha continued shakily. But the sheriff and the judge covered it up to protect the Bennett family. Ronan felt sick. The car. They forced the kids into it drunk and rolled it into the lake. Ronan stared at her in horror. Jesus Christ. Martha nodded weakly. Ellis witnessed everything. Everything clicked into place then. The fear, the warnings, the missing evidence. This town wasn't protecting a secret. It was built on one. The truth did not explode all at once. It leaked slowly into Ashbury Falls like poison rising through groundwater. And by the time the town realized what Ronan Pierce had uncovered, it was already too late to stop it. The morning after the shooting on Blackwater Lake, Ronan sat alone in his cabin staring at the old photograph Martha Keene had brought him. Rain tapped against the windows while dawn struggled through the fog outside. The faces in the photograph seemed innocent at first glance. Teenagers laughing beside a bonfire, beer bottles, pickup trucks, summer smiles frozen forever. But now Ronan saw the cracks beneath the image. Kelly Hart standing slightly apart from the others. Jonah Vance looking tense. Michael Turner glancing toward someone outside the frame with visible fear. And behind them, half-shadowed near the trees, stood the men who ruled Ashbury Falls. Mayor Harold Bennett, Judge Samuel Reeves, Sheriff Walter Monroe, the kings of the town. Untouchable men. Ronan lit a cigarette slowly. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Because this was no drunken accident buried by panic. This had been a coordinated cover-up, one protected by wealth, law, and fear. And now, 30 years later, Blackwater Lake was giving the dead back. Martha arrived just after sunrise looking worse than before. She locked the cabin door behind her immediately. You can't tell anyone I came here. Ronan studied her carefully. You're terrified. I should be. She sat down heavily at the kitchen table, hands trembling around a cup of untouched coffee. My brother Caleb worked maintenance at the marina back then. Ronan listened silently. He saw the whole thing. The old man leaned forward slightly. Tell me. Martha swallowed hard. That night, there was a party out at the Northern Cove. Rich kids, politicians' kids. Sheriff Monroe's son Ellis was there too. She stared blankly at the rain outside. Kelly Hart and Mayor Bennett's son Travis had been secretly seeing each other all summer. Ronan frowned. I thought Kelly dated Jonah Vance. She did. The old man's expression darkened immediately. Ah, now it made sense. Martha continued quietly. Jonah found out about the affair that night. The storm outside rumbled softly. There was a fight. Witnesses said Jonah punched Travis. Michael tried breaking it up. Kelly threatened to tell everyone about Travis selling drugs through the marina. Ronan narrowed his eyes. Drugs? Cocaine, mostly. The Bennett family had connections in Chicago. Sheriff Monroe protected shipments moving through the lake roads. The old man sat back slowly. The corruption went deeper than he imagined. Martha's voice became smaller. Caleb said Travis lost control. What did he do? Tears filled her eyes. He hit Kelly with his truck. Silence swallowed the room. Ronan stared at her. On purpose? I don't know. But her face suggested otherwise. She wasn't dead immediately. Martha whispered. Caleb heard her crying. Ronan closed his eyes briefly. And the others? Jonah and Michael panicked. They threatened to call police. Martha laughed bitterly. Problem was, the police were already there. The room felt colder suddenly. Sheriff Monroe arrived first, then the judge, then Mayor Bennett. Ronan's jaw tightened. And instead of helping those kids, they decided protecting their families mattered more. Martha wiped tears angrily from her cheeks. They forced the boys into the car with Kelly. Sheriff Monroe drove the vehicle himself into Blackwater Lake. Ronan felt physically ill. Alive? Martha nodded weakly. Caleb heard screaming from underwater. The old man stood slowly and walked toward the window. Outside, Blackwater Lake disappeared beneath rolling gray fog. For 30 years, the town had built itself atop murdered children. And every smiling politician, every charity fundraiser, every 4th of July parade had been stained with it. What happened to your brother? Ronan finally asked. Martha looked down. He drank himself to death 10 years later. Because of guilt. Because nobody believed him. She looked directly at Ronan then, just like nobody believed you. By noon, state police flooded Ashbury Falls. Ronan anonymously tipped investigators to the submerged vehicle's location through a payphone 30 miles outside town. Now everyone gathered near Blackwater Lake watching recovery crews prepare boats and sonar equipment. The mood felt wrong, not grief, fear, because secrets have weight. And Ashbury Falls suddenly felt like a town collapsing beneath its own. Sheriff Ellis Monroe stood near the shoreline, pale and hollow-eyed, while reporters shouted questions. Sheriff Monroe, is it true local authorities mishandled the original disappearance? Were town officials involved? Did your father suppress evidence? Ellis ignored them all. His eyes remained fixed on the lake. Ronan watched from a distance beneath a hooded raincoat. The sheriff looked less like a lawman now and more like a condemned prisoner waiting for sentence. Then the divers located the vehicle. A crowd gathered silently as cranes slowly dragged the rusted remains upward through the black water. The car emerged inch by inch, dripping mud and weeds. People gasped. Even after 30 years underwater, terror still clung to it. One diver pried open the rear door carefully and immediately recoiled. The smell hit next. Rot, decay, death preserved beneath cold water. Ronan removed his hat slowly. Inside the vehicle sat 2 skeletons tangled together, still trapped in their seats, still reaching toward shattered windows that never opened. The crowd fell silent. One elderly woman began crying openly, because everybody in Ashbury Falls remembered the missing teenagers, but nobody expected to see them again, especially not like this. The medical examiner approached Sheriff Monroe quietly moments later. Ronan watched Ellis's face lose all remaining color. Then the sheriff whispered, "No, something was wrong, very wrong." That evening, Ellis Monroe came to Ronan's cabin alone. No deputies, no badge, no authority left in him whatsoever. Only guilt. The sheriff entered slowly like a man approaching his own grave. "You were right," he said quietly. Ronan poured whiskey into 2 glasses without asking. Ellis accepted one immediately. His hands shook badly. "The whole town's coming apart." "Good." Ellis nodded once. Mayor Bennett barricaded himself inside his house. "What about Judge Reeves?" "Dead." Ronan raised an eyebrow. "Heart attack?" Ellis stared into the whiskey. "That's the official story." The old man grunted softly, meaning somebody got to the judge first. Then Ellis finally looked up. There were only 2 bodies in the car. Ronan went still. "What?" "Jonah and Michael." The sheriff swallowed hard. Kelly Hart wasn't there. The cabin suddenly felt smaller. "You sure?" "They searched every inch." Ronan frowned deeply. "That's impossible." Ellis rubbed both hands across his face. My father swore all three were inside when they sank the car. The old man stared toward the dark lake outside the window. Then, slowly, maybe she got out. Ellis shook his head immediately. No one survives Blackwater. But somebody moved through that lake 30 years later and grabbed my fishing line. The sheriff said nothing, because deep down, he believed Ronan too. 2 nights later, Mayor Harold Bennett disappeared. State police found him wandering barefoot along the shoreline near Blackwater Lake shortly before dawn, completely hysterical. Witnesses claimed the old man screamed continuously. She was supposed to stay down there. When officers restrained him, Bennett clawed at his own face so violently he nearly blinded himself. "They hear her singing at night," he sobbed. "She walks under the water." The former mayor was committed to psychiatric care within hours, but rumors spread quickly, especially after several fishermen reported hearing strange sounds echoing across the lake after midnight, a woman singing softly. And some claimed they saw someone standing waist-deep in the fog staring toward shore. Long dark hair, white dress, motionless, watching. 3 days after the bodies surfaced, Ronan received a package left anonymously outside his cabin. Inside was an old cassette tape labeled simply, Blackwater. October 1986. Ronan found an ancient tape recorder buried in his closet and pressed play. Static crackled first, then voices, young voices, arguing, Kelly Hart crying, Jonah shouting. Then another voice, Travis Bennett, drunk, angry. "You ruined my life." A loud impact followed. Screaming. Then Sheriff Monroe's voice entered clearly. "Everybody calm down." But nobody calmed down. The recording descended into panic, Michael yelling, "She's alive!" Then Judge Reeves saying the sentence that damned them all. "If this gets out, we all burn." Ronan listened in frozen silence as the teenagers begged for help. Then came splashing water, car doors slamming, screaming, and finally, Kelly Hart's voice, weak, terrified. "They're locking me in." The tape ended abruptly. Ronan sat motionless long after the recorder clicked silent, because now he knew something nobody else did. Kelly Hart had still been alive when the car entered the lake, and somehow, she never stayed there. If you enjoyed this short story, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.